Well, I am here at the request of the community regarding concerns. A young gentleman in the neighborhood by the name of Jason became concerned about some of the Superfund sites that exist out here that kind of fell off the face of the earth, and was concerned about neighbors that had cancer. So he started a Facebook page that went from about 9 to 90 to 900 to 1900 to 2700 pretty quickly overnight.
When I originally started the group, my friend Bren Johnson, friend and neighbor, died of brain cancer, I found out. So I started the group, and I just went out there and said, hey, do you know anyone that had any cancer cases? And within a week, I had over 90 people respond to me, and it just got overwhelming with the cases I've encountered. So a few of us started emailing Erin's team, and then they came on board, and all that documentation was routed to them. And I think Bob said he had over 1,200 emails so far or more.
I think that it begs us at some level to take a look at the information and listen to what is happening to the people. See, it's not the EPA's job when they clean up or they don't clean up or they ignore a Superfund site to come back 10, 15, 20 years after latency periods have run and check on the health and welfare of a community. We've had over 1,000 people throughout the United States who have moved away, who grew up here, that have cancer. We're going to place them back here, and we have to take a look at that because it might change those numbers. That's part of why we miss disease clusters, because we don't track people's movements. And so you've had a lot of people that may have lived here for 22 years, and remember, a lot of these chemicals have long latency periods. You could be exposed and not come down with an illness or disease for 12, 15, 18, 20 years. Look at mesothelioma. Even hexavalent chromium can take a long time for a latency period. So they've moved. Maybe the latency periods are running, but the state doesn't have all that data because everybody that's moved isn't reporting to the state that they now have a disease. They are reporting to us. They are reporting to the People's Registry. And so what we're saying is you actually may be right on your statistics, but in the absence of this information, it begs you to look at it to make certain that you don't have a cluster, because you can't say, they can't say, or I can say with any certainty in the absence of all the data, this is something or it's not something.
And I know my wife originally, when I started the group, she was kind of skeptical until Erin came on board and went, maybe there is something going on.
And we're here to help support them in any way that we can and have a meeting, help get them kick-started, provide them information, tell them where they can get records, encourage them to send information into the Facebook so I can link it to the map so we can upload it, so we can run some stats on it and possibly see what it all means. But we need to at least look at it.
We're going to start the meeting now. I'm Jason McCarty. I started the Fridley Cancer Cluster Group. I've lived in Fridley from 1969 to 1992. Thank you. Bob Balcock's he's Erin's investigator. He's going to speak for a while about what they found and what we can do. And then after Bob, Erin's going to speak, and then we're going to open up to a question and answer forum.
Perfect. Thank you, Jason. Thank you all for coming tonight, and thank you all that have sent in emails over the last 3 months. I gotta get that thing. Is that better? I don't even like microphones, so I don't use them from the get-go, but I wanted everybody to have a chance to hear, especially those people way back up there. Got the feedback down? Perfect. Thank you all for coming. What we wanted to talk to you about tonight, there's been a lot of questions in the Fridley community for many years. And they sort of all came to a head here this spring when Jason sent an email to Erin and said, hey Erin, what do you think about what's going on here and can you help us? Erin bounced it to me at about the same time I caught one of the articles referring to a meeting that Jason had and said, boy, it would really be great if Erin would come in. And I saw that on Fridley Patch, so it was something Zach had written. And so I sent a Facebook, just a private little message to Jason, said, I'll talk to Erin, and about 10 minutes later, Erin sent me an email saying, hey, this guy Jason from Fridley had contacted me. So that's sort of how we got involved. There's a lot of people out there that are speculating as to why we're here, you know, what are we looking for, are we here to you know, sideswipe somebody in government or embarrass somebody, and no. What this meeting's about is this is what we call our initial investigation, sort of our kickoff meeting. This is your meeting, this is not our meeting. We didn't come here to talk about us or where we've been or where we're going. What we're talking about is what you're experiencing. The initial report came out, the State Department of Health had reported that there was an elevated level of cancer in the Fridley area. We don't want to, get into debates about was it this high or that high or what are the statistics, whether the people moved in or the people moved out. I will tell you that I received over 1,200 emails. Most of the emails had at least 3 to 4 people in each of the emails, and most of them were people that had left the community. So as I understand the calculation for the study that was released that demonstrated the elevated level of cancer in the Fridley community, if there were a mechanism to add in the numbers of reported cancers from people who have left the community, the number would be significantly higher. Counter that, the state's going to say, well, what about our numbers and the people that moved in? So I don't know whether there's a balance. What I hope to tell you tonight is that we looked at the data that's available about the environmental pollution in the Fridley area. And what I want to do is share with you the concerns that has presented to me as somebody that's investigated these types of situations for many years, and hear from you your concerns historically, what you know has transpired as residents of this community over the last 40 years, and kind of what we as a community can do together to get action from various groups, whether it be government, regulatory, Clean Water Action's here, and I hope to have them come up and speak later this evening. What this is all about, and what we've found as Erin and I have gone around the country, is that it's about you. And if you're waiting for a government entity to come out and save you, it's not going to happen, okay? Don't trust the government. Don't trust the polluter. Don't trust me and tell Erin that. It's all about you and what you know to be true in your hearts and what you're going to do about it as a community. So I applaud Jason and Jason's efforts to get you all here tonight, because from this day forward, it's going to be about what you do to make a difference. So with that, what I want to share with you, I remember reading a quote, I'm not sure which outlet it was in recently, about this particular investigation causing me a brain cramp. I'm a pretty candid person, and that was a true fact. The reporter who reported that quoted me accurately. This one is pretty complex. The community of Fridley is a lovely town, small town, here on the Mississippi River, right just under 30,000 people. You have 6 Superfund sites within 1 square mile of where I'm standing right now. And those are federal Superfund sites. United States Environmental Protection Agency under the jurisdiction of the President of the United States. 6, okay? 1 went off the list. They've got the park and the water treatment system in the community on the list, which is completely confusing for me. And then around you, you have 4 more Superfund sites. Now, depending on which list you look at online provided by the EPA, that list for the state of Minnesota can have anywhere between 30, I think 27, 35, 65. The list varies depending on which website you go into the EPA website on. But there's about 30 Superfund sites. That's what you call it? Oh, okay. And there are about 30 Superfund sites in the state of Minnesota. I was sharing with somebody in the lobby. I come from Los Angeles, California. I come from a water treatment background. And I spent the first 20 years of my career as a public works director combating with a group of other public works directors in a community what we thought was the nation's largest Superfund site. Well, it probably was the largest national groundwater, drinking water community Superfund site, but Fridley's outdone me. Not only do you have 6 of the 30 plus or minus federal Superfund sites in the city of Fridley within 1 square mile of this stage, but you have the nation's largest, the nation's #1 Superfund site in the United States of America is here in Fridley. Now, that was how they referred to it in the mid-'80s. I don't know whether one's come off the list or outranked you or whether you've fallen in stature, but it certainly caused me concern when evaluating the nation's largest Superfund site records in conjunction with 5 other Superfund sites, and not one of the Superfund sites really talks about the effects or impacts of the other Superfund sites. However, 3 of the Superfund sites are associated with a single property. And so it's why the quote that this investigation has caused me a brain cramp. At the end of the day, what you need to know is your community and its environment has been polluted for a 40-year period up to and including today with volatile organic compounds that are known carcinogens by all regulatory agencies. Most commonly referred to as PCE and TCE, and you'll hear them interchanged. Their daughter chemicals, or what we call the breakdown components, vinyl chloride, are more dangerous. So when you hear people say, well, it's been 40 years, those chemicals are degrading, and I will tell you that the degradation process of TCE is roughly a 300+ year process. So we've got another 260 years to go. But what it does is it breaks down into a chemical called vinyl chloride. If you want a brain tumor, come in contact with vinyl chloride. It is not a good substance, and it is associated with all of these Superfund sites. Now, what occurred, best as I can tell, is that the federal government engaged in an experimental program in the state of Minnesota that they referred to as a deferral of regulatory authority to the state of Minnesota. So the State Pollution Control Agency took jurisdictional control or management oversight of these 6 sites to manage. December 2011, so about 6 months ago now, the federal government has taken back the Kurt manufacturing site. There's no explanation why. The state did a report in November 2011 where they indicated that everything was hunky-dory, everything was fine. Feds came out with a press release December 2011 and basically took it back. Said, we're going to take control over this. I don't know how powerful this Jason McCarthy guy is, but since that time that he first posted the Facebook webpage, the Superfund sites at the EPA have all received glowing brand new environmental annual reports dated May 2012. So they went and cleaned up the books really fast. And so we've had the opportunity to read that. They've also come out with a lot of recommendations about these Superfund sites, things that I want to talk about with you as a community and how you need to become involved in those processes. And they are basically saying, if you read them and read between the lines and know what to look for, go back to go, do not collect $200. You know, you know, you are in the timeout, the penalty box, because what they're saying is they're saying, go back and review everything. Go back and recharacterize groundwater flow directions and things like this. Because in reality, for the last 30 years, they're not really sure what's going on. Some things that we're really sure about, TCE is leaking into the Mississippi River at this moment in time. It's leaking out there right now. The concentrations have gone down. But what level of chemical pollution is acceptable? The level that I can handle is completely different than the level of that beautiful baby girl you were just holding out there, Erin, so where she is over here. The level she can take is completely different than what Erin and I can take. And so we get into this philosophical discussion or this political discussion or this environmental discussion about what's a safe level. I would argue that there's no safe level. As a matter of fact, the federal government's maximum contaminant level goal for these chemicals is 0. Now, the federal government will issue maximum contaminant levels for chemicals allowed in drinking water at a threshold, but there's a lot of study that goes into that, and it's not all health-based. It's economics-based, it's treatability-based. There's a lot of things that are taken into consideration when an MCL is actually set, and it does not always take in all the factors of human health. So my argument is over time, you're going to hear, well, we never exceeded a federal, safe Drinking Water Act violation. We never exceeded one of those maximum contaminant levels. And the records indicate that that's true. My other concern is what I will call tonight cumulative effects. And what I mean by cumulative effects is as residents of this community, I can assure you, I'm not sure what quantities or over what period of time, but up until 1981, you could have been drinking much higher levels, no levels at all. I mean, there's ways that that can be discovered. You can do groundwater modeling, you can do all kinds of things. And I'm absolutely perplexed as to why the federal government or some of the other regulatory agencies have not asked these corporations to do this. We are not talking about mom and pop dry cleaner that went bankrupt in 1969. We are talking about Fortune 100 corporations, international corporations in this community who have, I don't want to use the phrase pulled the wool over the federal government's eyes. I think they just walked up, poked them in the eyes, blinded them, and said, hey, we're in charge. Because everything in that record book, and that doesn't even scratch the surface. That's basically the index of the documents that's available out there. The polluter, these Fortune 100 companies, have basically managed their own cleanup. They've done what they wanted to do on their time schedule. And you're going to hear the regulatory agencies in the federal government say, come on, you know, it's hard economic times. They never funded the EPA anyway. We never had the funds to actually do this activity. And it's time to call BS on the government, because they have a mechanism under Superfund to cost recover, where every minute of their time is to go on a time card that they spend on one of these national corporation Superfund sites. On that time card, they're supposed to say, this is how much, you know, for the last 15 minutes I've worked on the FMC site. And they are supposed to cost recover. And the idea behind Superfund was, after we cost recover everything, give them a little penalty so that we can go clean up the bankrupt mom and pops. Unless somebody's willing to stand up and call me incorrect, every document I've read, cost recovery in Fridley, the nation's largest Superfund site, associated with 5 other Superfund sites, no cost recovery. Nobody's been paid a nickel. So you want to know why the federal government doesn't have any money? Because the big corporations tell them to go pound sand. So that's one of the biggest concerns that I have associated with the Superfund site. So back to, there is TCE in the drinking water supply in the Fridley community. Presently, it does not exceed any federal or state Safe Drinking Water Act maximum contaminant level. There are, as I understand it, and I'm always ready to accept correction, there are 4 800 plus or minus feet deep wells in a confined aquifer that are clean, that are without contamination. There are 4 300 plus or minus groundwater wells in the park across the street, a Superfund site, who knows why, that are contaminated with TCE, some at higher concentrations than others. Due to the limiting factors and the production capacity of those wells, they blend the clean water with the polluted water and serve you water that meets the regulation. As a community, I would not accept that. Would I feed that to that baby? Absolutely not. There is no safe level for pollutants, and as a community, you have a right not to accept them. Now, my question about, concentrations and things associated with pollutants is, is it the city's fault? Have they been providing you bad contaminated water? No. I do hold the city of Fridley accountable for one thing, and it's not that they served water with pollutants in it, regardless of the level. It's that they too, in my opinion, are as much a victim of the pollution as everyone that drank the water. It's a community water system. You own it, the city runs it, and they run it under the Federal Safe Drinking Water Act rules and the state of Minnesota rules. However, they received property damage. They own those wells. And on your behalf, they should seek cost recovery. They should have received a treatment water system back in 1982 when they first hit these companies that had done the pollution within the city of Fridley. Other communities around you, as soon as the TCE was discovered in their Superfund sites, received granular activated carbon treatment systems. Best as I can tell, they're blending across the street. So that's how you got it in your drinking water. If the city of Fridley's water meter truck was driving through town today and a Miller Brewing truck from Milwaukee crashed into it and totaled it, and the Public Works Director decided to park the truck in the city yard, and next year put it in his budget that he'd like a new truck, and the city council would say, what happened to the one we gave you last year? Hey, it got totaled. Who totaled it? The beer truck. Well, did you go to their insurance company and get a new one? No, I parked it in the yard. Public Works Director, go find another job. You're fired. 4 drinking water wells got TCE in them across the street. Where's your treatment systems? Your contaminated wells? Don't know where it came from. Don't want to take the time or trouble to go after them. So we're just going to allow them to be blended with better quality water. That's frustrating to me. And those are the kinds of things that need to get communities fired up and need you to get to take proper action. The city of Fridley, as the city of Fridley, are as much of a victim as everybody else. So you're going to hear a little bit more on water from me because I'm a water guy. We talk to dirt guys. There's experts in dirt. There's experts in air. And the treatment plant over at the FMC, the naval site, whatever you want to call that one over there, and Kurt, they pump the TCE up from the groundwater at concentrations far greater, because that's where they dumped it. It's migrated over here, but at the concentrations they're pumping it up, and they're air stripping it. And volatile organic compounds don't like to be in water. You blow them across those little golf ball, wiffle balls that you hit when you practice driving, and the water hits it, the volatiles break off, they go into the air, and best as I can tell, from what's available in the public record, the water experiences air stripping, is how they describe it. The water with lower levels of TCE is then dumped into the sanitary sewer system and allowed to be treated at the sewer treatment plant. That's not legal in other states, and it's certainly not part of, you heard me talk about the Safe Drinking Water Act, it's not part of what's allowed under the Clean Water Act, which EPA is supposed to, regulate under as well. What concerns me, back to that cumulative effect, there's 6 Superfund sites, but they treat them all as individuals because you never go on at 1 + 1 + 1 + 1 is 6, and so they never talk about them all together. What's the FMC one doing? What's the Kurt one doing? What's the Boise Cascade one doing? How do they commingle? What's happened? How are they associated? How are they disassociated? Why are they managed the way that they're managed? Because it's extremely inefficient. If they're air stripping over there and they don't have off-gas granular activated carbon collection systems,
Not only did you drink it in your morning coffee, but you were breathing it. Because if they off-gassed that, it went straight into your air. So that's my number 2 concern. What are the cumulative impacts of air associated with drinking? And if you're part of that historical community, the latency period for these types of cancers that take you back to the 70s and 80s, you were drinking it at higher concentrations, and they were putting it in open pits and burning it. And it's amazing. Do you all, historically, you guys all know that a former FMC employee in 1980, I'm not sure whether he got fired or why he left, but he went home, he got on the phone, and he called the state pollution control and reported it. And they went out in 1981 and they dug up the first set of barrels in what they refer to as the North 40. That was the property where they buried everything, out in the North 40. And in 1981, they said, yeah, we got it all under control, we got it cleaned up. They dug up barrels again in 1986. And gosh, lo and behold, they dug them up again in 1992. So, I mean, the time frame associated with A, their compliance with their order, because they dug it up in 3 sets of diggings, and what really happened, for me, is an open question. Back to that brain cramp. I can't answer half the questions I have. I hope there's some answers here tonight, and I hope that you can kind of fill in the blanks, and then I hope together that we demand and get the right answers, because everyone's entitled to those. The third area that concerns me is the soil and soil migration. Driving around Fridley, I'm a novice at the geology in the area. If I was, up to speed on the geology everywhere I've been in the last month, I'd be brilliant, but I'm not. I'm very, very, very fresh under geology here. But I noticed the sand dunes. I know the groundwater is at about 30 feet. And I know that TCE and PCE and these solvents float on top of the water. They don't like to dissolve. They're, kind of slickery, oily substances. They don't like to get into the water, but they like to float on top of the water. And they like to migrate through the soils. Because that upper level, before you get down to the bedrock, the fractured bedrock, which is almost impossible, you've got all these cracks and crevices and seeps that head out to the Mississippi. But in that sand zone, I'm concerned with what they call soil vapor intrusion. Okay, and that's where these VOCs have a tendency to migrate through the soil. And then one of the other things that's very common in Minnesota is basements. So not only is the groundwater sitting at 30 feet, but you dig 10 feet closer when you put your basement in. And if you live over an area where there's soil vapor intrusion possibilities, and I haven't met a basement that doesn't have cracks and crevices and allows that soil vapor to come in, you're re-exposing yourself again to the air via the soil. So we're talking water, we're talking air from the air stripping and the off-gassing, and we're talking soil. And the record is, to call it incomplete would be almost a compliment. It's not incomplete. They haven't even really started. And so that and therein lies the frustration. Back to the air, because I do this off the top of my head. Back to the air. 1989 to 1996, 98. 20,000 pounds. 20,000 pounds of TCE was airstripped at the FMC site. So if 20,000 pounds was airstripped, that's a lot of little particles in our air. So I just wanted you to have the number. What I'd like to do now, so that we can get to what this investigation is all about, which is about you, and about you helping fill in the blanks, is I'd like Erin to come up and have her talk to you a little bit about her involvement, why she does what she does, how we work together, and about her understanding of what happens to real people I think she might share that Fridley is one of 4,000 sites Erin's currently working on today. And they're based on people reporting.
Wow, I thought I could talk a long time, but Bob beats me. I've been working with Bob for about 11 years, and he does a terrific job in getting out ahead of me to many community meetings. So he kind of explained to you how it got involved, and I have to tell you, it is really communities that are starting to actually make the difference. From Jason getting a hold of me, to the Facebook page that he started, to getting Bob out here ahead of me, it's really making a huge difference. What's happened to me over the past couple of years was when Facebook started, it was kind of restitching people back together. You know, that had graduated from high school and college and hadn't seen each other and moved on and had babies and gone to other countries. And Facebook brought them back together. And a couple of years ago, some girls from a school in Tennessee had contacted me, and there was about 30 of them. And they thought it was interesting, once they found each other again on Facebook, they all had cancer, all of them. So they went to Google, and Google didn't have a whole lot of information. So they thought, well, heck, maybe Erin Brockovich does. So we actually started looking at the information, and were able to trace them all back to the same high school, which had never been disclosed, was built on a Class 1 hazardous waste dump. So a lot of times information doesn't get out there to people, and I think we're in a new era with Twitter and Facebook and internet where we're able to start getting more data to each other. One thing that I have started doing because of that work, and Bob had mentioned to you the map, is I thought, what is the best thing that I can do to help these people? We certainly don't come in here wanting to beat up on agencies, even though we're certainly frustrated with them. I think sometimes they're frustrated. And in all fairness, while they may know that they have a big Superfund site, it's never been the EPA's job to come back in and see the health effects of a community. You can live on top of a Superfund site and be exposed to chemicals, and we may not see a disease process for 20 years, but nobody's coming back in and monitoring you. And that's one thing that we're really hearing communities screaming out that they want help doing. So part of what I decided to do was, if I could take information from you and turn it into something visual that could help you see and help agencies see what's going on across the country, that's what we started to do. So I created what's called the People's Reporting Registry. And I've gotten into an agreement with Google, who's building it. You know, I know that people hear all the time, or they'll read something in the newspaper, Erin's not a scientist, Erin's not a chemist. And you know what? I'm not. I was raised by an engineer who worked for industry, my father, who worked for Texaco. I've spent 22 years doing this. I've worked with some of the finest experts, scientists, chemists, and doctors. And somewhere things kind of fall into a common sense place for me, that green water and seeing two-headed trout in water and a frog that's turned into hermaphrodite, and community after community after community reporting that something's wrong, maybe something's wrong. And maybe it's time we take a look at it. And maybe we don't understand it because we can't see it. You can't see what's happening under here. It's not being reported to you. Your agencies and your leaders don't see all of you. You don't know where to report information, do you? So this is why we've created the People's Reporting Registry. And to just show you what's happened very quickly, and Google is building out the system. So that is one of the things that's, I don't know how to use this iPad. This is ridiculous. I'm sorry. I'll find it here. And I don't have my glasses on either. Bob, where are you when I need you? I can't see. There. Okay. So I wish I had an overhead projector, but I kind of want to show you what's starting to happen all across the United States. And you guys have done it yourself. This is just an Excel spreadsheet that somebody sent in to me, like Jason, like your community, that thinks it's odd. I know you're not a scientist, but thinks it odd that my neighbor down the street, and my neighbor across the street, and my neighbor around the corner, and I myself, and my neighbor 3 doors down, and my neighbor 5 doors down, all have cancer. So I get stuff like this all the time, and this is a community out in Ohio. She thought it was odd. She had 12 people. I thought it was odd. So I ran a query on my system. I had 29 people reporting to me from 11 different states who grew up in the same town, and they all had glioblastoma brain cancer. We're now at 59. And this is from people deciding that, you know what, I'm going to be in charge of my health again. I'm going to be in charge of my neighborhood again. I'm going to be in charge of my town again. And I'm going to start asking questions. I'm going to start using Facebook. Another person, and I just want to show you by way of example what communities are starting to do. And where is that? They do things like get on ZMAP. And I want to help you begin to arm yourself. You've already done that by showing up tonight, creating your Facebook page. But what you may not see on here is a bunch of green dots. This is a community that went door to door with each other and find out what was going on with their neighbors. You know, we don't do that anymore. I was born and raised in Kansas. I clearly remember if my parents were out of town or at a movie, and I happened to be walking down the street, my neighbor would go, "Where are you going, Erin?" We don't do that anymore. So all these people got together. Every one of these green dots in this community has a family member with cancer. There's hundreds of them. They're on a known Superfund site. So what we decided to do was start taking that information and building a database and looking at the people, where they were coming from. We're doing longitudes and latitudes. We have a coder. We're putting in the #1 cancers that we see. We're picking the top 3. It can't be every single cancer. We want to start running some statistics so we can begin to look at it. Here's the thing. You can say to me all day long, and your agencies can run different cancer stats, but we don't have the information. You're right. Neither do you. We're starting to get the information from the people. Oftentimes we don't know that this is going on. So one thing that we've started to do is run a query, because we don't track people's movements. So you can say that in Hinckley, California, I get attacked on this all the time. And it's really not my argument, but they say there's 196 cancers, there should be 224. I don't know where they get their numbers, but that's okay. But of the 196, do you know if their cancer was caused by the chemical that they were exposed to? No, you don't. Of the 196 people, did you look at the deaths of people in the community that died of cancer that you know might be related to the chemical? No, you don't. Did you track the movements of the people? What if 200 people moved from Hinckley and 110 of them grew up there and they have cancer? Did you add that to your number? Because if you did, you've exceeded 224. You have a cluster. I think that there's missing data points that can help us determine if there is a cluster. And if there is a cluster, we need to know that information so people know. They can get better medical care. They can protect themselves. And we need to start making and correlating our potential disease process to all the contamination that we are exposed to. So very quickly, the People's Reporting Registry blew up overnight. 4,000 communities. I can't see the northeast quadrant in the United States. And what scares me is I have 700 more sites to add. So I really think that we've come to a time and a place to stop the finger pointing, stop our politics, and start working together and finding out what is happening to these communities. We expect our children to clean up their bedrooms. And I think it's time that we expect of ourselves to clean up our mess and begin to take a look at what we've done and what might be happening to the people. Because nobody's coming back in to tell you. How many of you knew you had 6 Superfund sites? Wow. None of you knew. That's pathetic. I guess nobody saw all of you and your children and your homes and the schools out there. You were not notified. That's the first problem. How many of you in this room either personally have cancer, a family member with cancer, or know of a neighbor or a friend that lives here or is moved that has cancer? Can you raise your hands? That's almost the whole room. This is missing data. And this is why we have these community meetings. So we can begin to find out what's happening to you. And we can begin to change the face of tomorrow. And I mean that. You know, I look at the little baby right here. You know why I'm here now? My baby in the movie, Erin Brockovich, is having a baby. I'm going to be a grandmother. Yay! It's the next generation coming, and I think that we have problems. But see, there is hope. There's hope with Jason. There's hope with Facebook. There's hope with you being here. There's hope with us being here. We're going to begin communication. It's broken down. We're going to begin to find missing data points so we can provide that to the appropriate agencies and or scientists so we can just look at the information. So I can stand here today and tell you I don't have all the information, but I can stand here today with certainty and tell you they don't have it either. And the first mistake was none of you were notified. That's unfair. And all of you have friends or yourself or family members who are sick. And that's not fair. We have to start putting data together, and that process begins with you. And that's what tonight is all about. All of this information as we go forward, we will provide to you, but we need you to provide information back to us. If you're having a problem, if somebody's moved, they're from Fridley, please get on the Facebook site. Don't hesitate to email me, Erin@brockovich.com. All this information is going to be put into the map so we can begin to run some statistics and hopefully start taking a look at what all of it means. But we're going to need you to help push back on your own agencies, not in a bad way, in a good way, to get them started to hearing you, addressing your concerns, and cleaning up the United States' largest Superfund site. It's not going to go away. We can come out here and do some testing. It's a very expensive process. Your state needs to come out here and start doing some testing. Things could get into litigation. It could take 10 years. And in the meantime, nothing's going to change for you, and we need to start making things happen for you. And awareness is going to be that. So we are available to be here to help guide you. We will step in. We will do testing. We will definitely, unfortunately, be talking to law firms. It's just something that we can't necessarily get away from. But our main objective is to hear from you, help you, and guide you so you can have a better living environment. And certainly be aware that you live on top of a Superfund site. And if somebody is sick, now you know. You know the cure for cancer is early awareness, early detection. And that's one thing that makes me so mad that we don't share with people that they have a problem. Because now you've robbed them of the choice to know and get to a doctor early. So now you know, and now the process has begun. It won't be easy, won't happen overnight. We're not going to misguide you in any way. We're not angry at anybody. We're not here to mudsling. We want to work with everybody.
So if you can provide us information about what's happening to you, we're going to get it into a map, and we're going to get it to the necessary people here in your town and in your state so they can begin the process of actually helping you. So when you start one of these things, you can get frustrated and go away a week later. You're in it for the long haul. And that's what they did in Hinckley, California. And had only one person come forward, wouldn't have turned out the way it did. But a community decided to get together, and they stayed together. And in the end, it wasn't the money that made their life better. It was the fact that they knew. And now they could protect themselves. They could get away from it. Now they weren't going to overlook some of the problems they had, and they got early medical care. It actually became a life-saving measure for them. So stay together. That's going to be my biggest message in working with the community. Bob will do all the investigation. I'm OSHA certified. I can come out here and do testing. I don't do it as much. You know, Ed has nicknamed me the canary. He's like, throw Erin down there. If she doesn't come back, we've got a problem. But Bob and a team will be the ones that will come out here and do testing. We will have more community meetings as things develop. You are free to contact us at any time. We will do everything we can to provide you with information. We already know a lot. We already know we have a problem. Your agencies know you have a problem. Federal government knows you have a problem. Now you need to start sharing with us what your problems are so we can look at that data and we can come in here and push to do something for a change. And that's where we're at. I wish I had all the answers for you today. I don't. I feel sick most of the time when I leave these community meetings. But on the other end, I'm hopeful. You're here, you know, we're going to keep talking, and we're going to start finding ways to help you. We know people have concerns about property damage. People are going to have concerns about their health. Email us. We'll be back. We'll start providing you with data. And I think one of the first things that we need to do, and Bob agrees with me, we need to look at what a soil vapor intrusion does or doesn't exist out here. That's one thing that's very frustrating. To be the world's biggest Superfund site, or the nation's biggest Superfund site, and nobody's defined where the plume is or isn't? Is it a mile long? Is it 5 miles long? Is it a mile wide? Is it 2 miles wide? What the hell's going on out here? That's one of the first things that we're going to do, is start working to delineate where this contamination has gone, where it is and where it isn't, how big it is and how wide it may or may not be. You know, we've been dealing with this in upstate New York. A community just like yourself didn't know it. They had a huge TCE spill. The plume is 5 miles long. It's 1.5 miles wide. We need to know where this contamination has or hasn't gone. And that's one of the first things that Bob will do. So we'll be back. I'm going to shut up for now because I know all of you have questions, and we would like to hear from you and answer any questions that we can for you tonight.
Erin was talking about the daughter on her hip that's going to make her a grandma here pretty soon. The chemical of concern in Hinckley, California was a chemical called hexavalent chromium, or Chrome 6. Okay, it was a biocide used in the cooling towers at a gas compressor station out in the desert. Does anybody in the room know what the MCL is for Chrome 6, the maximum contaminant level in drinking water? It doesn't exist. That baby is going to be a grandmother, and the maximum contaminant level for a known carcinogen that a corporation paid $333 million once and $350 million the second time over. 334 the second time. So let's just be safe and say a little over, $665 million bucks. There's still no maximum contaminant level for that chemical, and that baby's going to be a grandmother. Working with Clean Water Action in the state of California, we've gotten them to issue a public health goal. Only state in the nation. California has, whether you like it or not, it sometimes gets out ahead of these things. We have a public health goal in California for Chrome 6, a known carcinogen. There's a public health goal. The maximum contaminant level for drinking water, I hope it's not
when Erin's great-granddaughter gets here. Because it literally, the health officials in the state of California are saying maybe 8 more years. There is no maximum contaminant level for hexavalent chromium. They do regulate chrome from the original Clean Water Act, but it has nothing to do with Chrome 6. And so working with Clean Water Action day in and day out, her counterpart in the state of California is in Sacramento, beating them up saying we need that public health goal yesterday, not in 8 years. So with that, Deanne, I'd like you to come up and talk a little bit about Clean Water Action here and what you can do for your state.
As Bob said, my name is Deanna White. I'm the state director for Minnesota Clean Water Action. We are one of the largest environmental groups in the state. We have about 50,000 members across the state. We have a door-to-door canvas that goes out and knocks on doors, and we have folks that call and pester you on the phone and talk to you about issues that we're working on. The reason Clean Water Action exists is because the Clean Water Act exists. 40 years ago, the Clean Water Act was passed into law 40 years ago this October. Clean Water Action came out of the movement that it took to get that act created. It took people dying, it took rivers being on fire to get people's attention. And unfortunately, we're in the same situation today that we were 40 years ago, that it takes people dying, it takes people getting sick, it takes us standing up and stomping our feet to get attention for any of these issues, these things that we know to be true, but that there's no policy, that we don't have 40 years of proof and scientific data because nobody's studying it, and we don't have the resources to do it ourselves. And the companies that are doing the polluting aren't being held accountable. So Clean Water Action came out of the desire to organize, the desire to create a movement, the desire to funnel all of the energy and the frustration and the fear and change it into hope and change it into power. Because all of you sitting in this room do have power. It doesn't feel like it. Most of the time, especially nowadays, it feels like we're just yelling into the wind. But the fact is that all of us banding together is the only thing that can outlast corporate interests. It's the only thing that can overpower lobbyists. It's the only thing that can yell loud enough to get attention. It takes every single one of you and everybody you know. And coming to these meetings is an incredibly important first step. Talking to each other on Facebook, expanding the group are all incredible steps. Because it's true, we don't know what's going on in Hinckley. We know there's Hinckley, sorry about that. In Fridley, where am I tonight? I don't live too far from here, you'd think I'd be able to remember. But you know, we don't know what's going on. We don't know because the system is broken. I was really startled to find out when I started working on chemical pollution that we passed a law in 1976, which was after the Clean Water Act, called the Toxic Substances Control Act. This was the act that was supposed to let us know what chemicals are being used in consumer products and processes so that we can better protect human health, right? Unfortunately, they grandfathered in all of the chemicals that were used at the time. There's now over 80,000 chemicals registered for use in the United States. Action to limit or eliminate, 5. The system's broken. Clean Water Act, every time you turn around, there's a new measure in Congress to gut it. Because we should just trust people to do the right thing. And the companies, they're fine to police themselves. They have such a great history of that over the course of our country that we should just have faith. We don't need the Clean Water Act. We don't need safe drinking water. Of course we have safe drinking water. And if we don't, we can buy bottled water, right? So what's the problem? There's a problem. These things are all incredibly thoughtful policies, but they're not working because we're not willing to invest our political will and our money in the proper enforcement and accountability. And the only way that changes is by doing what you're doing tonight, showing up. Showing up, talking to your neighbors, not letting it rest. It matters who you talk to. It matters what you do. It matters that you show up. And it sure as heck matters who you vote for. Because all of those things will have an impact on whether the EPA has funding and political will to do their job, or whether they'll do what they've been stuck with in the past, which is ignoring the problems that come up and pushing them under the rug and telling us that we should just trust that somebody will take care of it someday, and it's not really that big a problem, because you all know that it is. So Clean Water Action is one of the many organizations in Minnesota that exists to band people together. And you guys are already doing that, and you need to absolutely continue to do that, and anything that we can do to help you, we will. And in the meantime, check out our website, cleanwateraction.org/MN. If you want the Minnesota page, you can find out what we're up to. You can send us emails. Let us know what's going on. Let us know how we can help. And with that, I'm just going to end by saying that we're a Canvas-based organization, so we never go anywhere without a clipboard. So I'm going to start the clipboard around. I'm sorry I only brought one, but we actually had a really huge Canvas crew going out tonight to talk about toxins in eating prairie. So they took all the clipboards. This was the only one I could find. So I'll start it on here. Please, if you're interested in more information, interested in connecting with us, sign up, but we'll definitely be doing whatever we can to help. And congratulations to all of you for showing up tonight.